Hello, healed listeners. I'm so glad that you're here with us today. I have a real treat for you. I have Jason Sapp here with us, he lives in Colorado now. He's from all over, but considers Texas his original home. And he is a veteran and now a life coach who has a story to share with us about how he found some natural and true healing. So, Jason, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm excited for today.
Yes, I'm excited about how many people are going to hear your story and it's going to change their life. So let's get started. First of all, which branch of the military were you in? Tell us a little bit about your service.
Yeah, certainly. I had served in the U.S. Army, so I served from 2002 to 2007, so 5 years, of which I spent 3.5 in either trainings or deployments to Operation Iraqi Freedom. I served 2 tours in Operation Iraqi Freedom. Finally serving as a cavalry scout with the 2nd Brigade Recon Team of the 1st Infantry Division. So I was based out of Schweinfurt, Germany on my last tour. And so, yeah, that was an incredible journey and a series of events that took place in my life at that time, which was all led to by my actual decision of joining the military. I actually spent the weekend in Manhattan the weekend before 9/11. So I was actually at the recruiter's office a day before 9/11. And so when that happened, that just kind of drove my passion. I just knew I needed to serve at some point in some capacity, just for the freedom's sake in and of itself.
Well, we are very thankful for your service, so we appreciate that for sure, yours and your family supporting you in that. So tell me about your health issue that you had with PTSD from your military experience. And you had said that you really didn't have any anxiety, depression, or anything like that prior to your service. Tell me how this got started. What started happening when the PTSD started coming on?
That's actually a great question because, like you said, I didn't experience any of that prior to. And so for me to have panic attacks and anxiety while I was there in Baghdad took me by surprise. I thought I was having some heart issues. But really what drove me to see the doctor even there in Baghdad was having the audible sounds within my nightmares. So I was dreaming asleep, right? Thought I heard gunfire, picked up my rifle, went out of my little shack and realized everything was normal out there. People walking around doing their thing. We're on base, so it wasn't an issue. But it was an issue for me to audibly wake up thinking that I was getting shot at, right? So I took that to the brigade surgeons there, and that began a path that the Army sent me down that actually sent me back to Germany, and then out processed through that whole medical exams and psychiatric exams and all that kind of stuff that they went through in the protocols they have set up for that. So that's really what started for me was just those little things. And I called them little because they were enough for me to say something's not right here.
Yeah.
I'm dealing with this. It feels like that. And now I'm waking up with this because I felt like this, right? So taking that information and approaching the docs there in Iraq that sent me back to Germany then at that point. So, yeah.
And were you surprised that they said that this was a mental health issue and not a physical issue?
Oh, absolutely. Because I literally felt I was having like many heart attacks, right? It was just such a sharp pain in my chest on my left side. So I just assumed that it was definitely a physical issue. And so I did the pulmonary workup. I did the cardiologist and echocardiograms. Did the full blown workup. And they're like, yeah, there's some minor issues and we'll give you a couple of prescriptions, but we're going to actually refer you to mental health. And I was just so confused. I was like, no, you don't understand. This is a physical issue. And he's like, no, you don't understand. No, it's not. So that was a rude awakening for me to understand that my body was manifesting physical issues from an emotional response to that trauma. And I didn't understand that.
Which is very common. Our body stores emotions. I'm sure you are aware of that. And so that's very common, not just with anxiety and depression, but with lots of different emotions. So
Yep.
you received a military discharge from the Army because of your PTSD. Tell me about after you get home, what was life like for you after you got home, and what steps were you doing to see a doctor?
Yeah, certainly. So the funny part about it all was the Army did not want to classify my discharge as PTSD because they would have to retire me. So they put it under a panic disorder and cut me out with a severance check and said, thanks, go get connected with the VA. They'll really take care of you. I'm like, oh, great. That's what I got to look forward to. Because we used to make fun of the VA in the Army. That's where soldiers go to die, you know? So that's what we made fun of while we were in the service. And then all of a sudden, now that's what I got to go to. That was a rude awakening, right? And so that was a huge transition for me, but I went right away. So literally got on the flight from Frankfurt, Germany, you know, got back to Texas, and 2 days later I was at a VA doctor to get checked in, get records transferred, all the processes that it takes to get registered within the VA system. And within a few weeks after that, I was doing my mental health evaluations through that processing. So within that same time frame, they came back and said, no, this isn't just a panic disorder, and this is actually directly related to your combat experience, and it is post-traumatic stress. The reality of the way your body manifests that trauma, right? Like you said, it's stored in our body. So the way it ends up manifesting out over time is that if you don't deal with it soon enough, it's going to start kicking its ugly rear head. So generally speaking, 6 months to a year after a traumatic event is when symptoms really start manifesting pretty profoundly. So that's what I was experiencing as I was returning to Texas, because that was the window of time frame it took for me to out process from the Army. So for me, it was just a shock to go through all of that. But I had the VA there, and I used all the tools that they gave me at the time. It just wasn't the right tools, in my opinion. So that unfortunately led down a different path than what I expected. But yeah, just dealing with the VA side of it, I made sure I was connected right away, because I didn't want to have a gap in time where I didn't have some sort of resource or tool, because I didn't have anything else. And at that time in my life, I never really doubted doctors. I never really doubted the medical system. So I just put that effort into it. I said, okay, I'm going to go to that social worker. I'm going to go to this workshop, and I'm going to do the things that I needed to, but it just wasn't enough. It wasn't the right stuff either. So
tell us about, you were given medicine. Tell us about what medicine, how many, was that successful?
Right. Yeah. So those of us in the VA system, those of us, of course, are veterans. We all kind of call it a veteran cocktail. We all get it. It's about the same for almost everybody that's been through combat. Of course, everything from the high blood pressures to dealing with all of the effects of PTSD. So every symptom that I would tell them about that I was experiencing, they had a pill for. So within 3 months, I was on 14 different medications to deal with everything from the sleeping issues, the anxiety issues, the depression issues, all of those things that were coming up that I would just tell them, because I tried to be as honest as I could with the doctors and just saying, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what I'm seeing now. And like, okay, great. We've got this pill. We've got that pill. And like, it just stacked up real quick.
Mm-hmm. And was that successful at all? Did you get any relief from the medications?
No, actually, unfortunately, there may be some out there that might get some relief from it, but have yet to hear a success story, including myself. So for me, in my doctor's appointments, I would go through and say, okay, this is what I'm struggling with now. But ultimately, what I was able to learn was how to pinpoint issues that were new. And what I ended up learning after the fact, of course, hindsight's 20/20, but what I learned after the fact was I was actually just describing side effects of the pills I was already on that they would then put a new prescription on top of. And most of them, they never really studied the correlating effects that can occur with multiple psychotropic medications together, combined with all the other ones that I was doing for the health issues. So I was really just seeing more and more side effects, not necessarily more effects of my trauma, because the trauma that was there. So the nightmares continued, they persisted, but now with the medications, my night sweats got worse. And I was literally waking up in a pool of sweat, sheets drenched through the bed. So, I mean, it just amplified the already struggling issues I had with the trauma and the PTSD. It just amplified those even more. So it kind of made it worse in a big way. And some of the psychotropics, man, literally made me feel loopy. Like I felt dizzy almost, but I wasn't dizzy. It's a really hard description to talk about, but I would relay that to the doctor and like, oh, no problem. It's only been 6 weeks. We can switch this out. Let's put in another one. And literally like every 6 or 8 weeks, I was on different medications, and they were trying to find what had the least side effects that could provide some sort of result. And neither of those really worked.
And where did that lead you in your physical health?
Just deteriorated altogether. So mind you, like part of my trauma, my reaction to that trauma, rather, my PTSD, was I did not continue what I was habitually doing in the Army as far as working out. When I got out, I was overstressed. What I didn't realize was happening was I was associating working out with my trauma. So that was something that took years for me to figure out. But I withdrew from working out, and of course I withdrew from everything. I couldn't build friendships. I couldn't build trust with anybody. So I was isolating myself. Even though I was working full-time and going to college full-time, none of that was effective in eliminating the stuff I was struggling with the trauma, but then amplified with the side effects of all the pills that I was on. It was just a bad combination altogether.
And then you also ended up gaining some weight.
Massive weight. Yeah. So literally within...
issues.
Yeah, so I was medically discharged in August of 2007, and so my PTSD and the trauma that I was exposed to destroyed my marriage. We separated in April of 2008. Our divorce was finalized in August of 2008, and in October of 2008, I attempted suicide by overdose. So when I came out of that and I started my journey fresh, my wife and I got back together. We remarried in December of 2008, and within 2 years of that, because again, I still associated working out with my trauma, so I avoided working out. Yeah, I'd go for walks in the neighborhoods, but that's not exercise when you've been in combat, like in that level of physical fitness that I was at in the Army. And so my body was just falling apart. So the prescriptions didn't help, the lifestyle didn't help, and so I gained well over 90 pounds within that year and a half after the Army. And in December of 2010, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes by the VA, and so that spawned a whole new protocols of shooting insulin in my stomach and all that stuff, trying to get a hold of it because my blood sugar levels were over 500, which is definitely not healthy when they're supposed to be at the 100 range. So yeah, it was pretty bad season. That took me about 1.5 years of trying to deal with that before a revolutionary new process came into place of just changing my diet altogether.
So I love the way you were introduced to something different. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always a funny story, it seems, at least in my life. But yeah, I was at the VA trying to pick up my insulin at the pharmacy, and this older lady was there, picking up prescriptions for her veteran husband. And she was just so baffled. Why was I picking up insulin? Why do you have diabetes? Sweet little Texas lady. And so I don't know, it just is what it is. And she said, well, you got to go check this book out. They say it's supposed to cure diabetes. And I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. In 1 year out the other, because any doctor will tell you once you have diabetes, it's done. Like you have it, you can't cure it. There's no cure for diabetes, right? That's what they'll tell you.
And so if you're listening, that's not true. That's
not true. We're going to get there. So for me, when I heard this lady say, oh, you can cure it, I'm like, oh, great. Here's another wacko, whatever the case may be. I didn't take heed to it for about 3 months when I happened to be at Barnes & Noble because my daughters are readers. They love to read. We homeschooled our girls. But so we're at Barnes & Noble, and lo and behold, I'm like, oh, my gosh, there's that book. Honey, I got to buy it now. Like, I can't avoid it anymore, And so I bought the book and let it sit on my shelf for another 2 months before I actually read it. But when I picked it up, I could not stop reading it. It's a blood sugar solution by Dr. Mark Hyman, functional medicine doctor. And it revolutionized my understanding of the food industry and the medical industry, how they not only don't look after the individual's best interest, they only look out for the best interest of their pocketbooks, but they do it in a calibrated way that makes you just sick enough to stay in the healthcare system and to be on the pills and to be in those routine doctor visits. And it just opened everything wide open for me to understanding, like, I am literally a product of what I put into my body, both the experiences of life, but the foods that I eat, the things that I drink. I'm a byproduct of that. So if I switch gears, which I did, my wife and I literally got construction trash bags and emptied our entire kitchen. went back to the store and was shocked at how expensive organic is. But we went that route. We did a season of juicing, a season of doing protein shakes for meal replacement, just to get things under control. Plant-based diet, natural, all of the high $12 a pound chicken, because it's free range, organic, no hormone fed, all that kind of stuff, right? So we went that path and have been on that path since 2012. But within 6 to 7 months of starting that diet and doing the supplements, Dr. Mark Hyman had a great worksheet to figure out what supplements he might need, dealing with what he calls diabesity, which is, obviously diabetes, but combined with different levels of malnutrition, which obesity can be actually considered. You could be a skinny person and considered to be malnourished in that sense. That's why he called it diabesity. So anyways, supplements, the proper nutrition, I was getting the minerals and vitamins that I needed in my body. So again, that byproduct of that resulted in about 90 pounds lost. I was able to balance my A1C, where my doctor at the VA said I was no longer diabetic, which, there's no cure, right? But that was I was in October 2012, and ever since I've had clean bill of health of all my lab work every year, even including this year. So for me, it was a revolutionary process to understand. But again, truth revealed that for me. The truth of what was really going on in our food industry, the truth about what's going on in our medical and healthcare industry, opened my eyes to a better way. And it's a matter of coming to that place of understanding that there is a better way, and then doing something about it. Revolutionized my life. So that's what I advocate for. I help people get connected to that process and what that might look like for them.
So you got on a good nutritional program. You started working out, added some supplements, and then you're a member of Young Living. So you ended up getting connected with Young Living. And do you care to describe, you had an actual incident at a restaurant that caused you to have kind of a revelation about essential oils and how they can support your mental health?
That's actually a good way to word that, a revelation, because that's kind of what it was. And those usually happen when it feels like a ton of bricks just got landed right in front of you. You're like, holy cow, this is life-changing, right? So we were introduced to Young Living unexpectedly in January 2014 when somebody invited us over to their house. We were actually just looking for a doctor for my wife. We needed to help her with some breathing stuff she was struggling with. And nobody actually gave us a referral on Facebook, but somebody said, hey, come over to the house before you go see the doc. And so we did. We're just thinking we were going over to see a friend, that we had just met a week or so before. And lo and behold, they were having a Young Living intro class with like 8 other women. So here I am, this only dude in this room. It smelled like a spa going into it. I'm just like, nah, honey, I'm going to leave you and the girls here. I'm going to go find something to do for an hour, and I'll come back and get you. And the funniest thing that she said, and it was life-changing for the both of us, she said, don't leave or I'm going to buy it. I don't know what she's selling, but I'm going to buy it all. And I'm like, no, you ain't spending money on that. So I stayed to make sure she didn't buy it, but I was the first person to say, we need this, right? So when we realized the benefits of what Young Living was, because again, we were already on this track of understanding the importance of what we're putting into our body. So for me, it was a no-brainer. And it was like, let's do it. In fact, my wife signed us up under my name and my social. So it was great that, we got to see that avenue. And so we've grown. Yeah, exactly. So we've actually grown our Young Living business we're golds now, shooting for platinum here. And so for us, it's been a journey of now sharing our story and sharing the benefits of that. So initially, of course, we didn't know it had anything to do with emotions, right? It was great for the physical effects that we wanted, and we sought after, and it worked. And we're like, this is great. And so it continued on that journey. But it wasn't until going to a barbecue shack there in Lockhart, Texas, and for whatever reason, when we went back to this party room that I had never been to before, even though we'd been to the restaurant 100 times before, went back to the party room, and it just triggered me to an Iraqi National Police Station there in central Baghdad, where we did a lot of work. I'm not going to go into the details of that. It's not needed, but it was a bad situation where anger, rage, shortness of breath, I was ready to go and engage the enemy. Basically, that's how I felt in that moment. So I dropped my tray, didn't even take a bite. I just dropped my tray, left, and went outside to my truck. And my wife, of course, follows me like she always did. And what we used to do is just try to breathe it out, just try to control the breathing as best I could, which was hard. It's hard to do that in that moment when you're so filled with so much emotion, and you feel like your life is on the line right there. You're just wired and ready to go. And so it was always hard to try to control the situation. But she said, well, here's this peace and calming oil. Like, let's try it out. I heard this is good for this stuff. And that's as compliant as I can get, right? So anyways, she put that around my nose and around my temples, as fast as she could. And within seconds, it pulled me out of that trigger. I'm like, whoa, I could take a breath, deep breath at that. And I was like, okay, this changes the equation. I said, I don't know what this was or what this did, but I got to find out why and how it works, and let's do more of it. And so my side of the oil budget went up because I started buying oils and I started doing my thing. But that led me to a depth of emotional healing that I never thought possible. And the freedom that I achieved on the other side of that was a beautiful experience for me. It took time, took a lot of oils, took a lot of effort, but don't get me wrong, it's worth it to get on the other side of trauma and to be living in freedom again.
So you actually are a life coach now and have a program called Trauma to Freedom?
Yeah, my Trauma to Freedom Symposium, I have. It's available on my website as a pre-recorded program. I will be planning on doing another live one soon as well, but that program walks people through what it takes to heal, because it's not just about oils. I had to understand that the oil part was really just a fraction of it, because I spent my life after the Army going through those different phases and then coming into natural wellness and the diet side of it and the nutrition side of it and the exercise part of it. Like, I had to put all of that together, as well as all the mental and emotional things that I had to work through, like overcoming fear, dealing with and processing forgiveness. Like, that's one of the most difficult things for any human to go through when you legitimately have traumas that threaten your life, like most people do, from child abuse to spousal abuse or whatever the case may be. It doesn't have to be combat related. So for me to see the need to pour into people's hearts of learning to forgive and moving forward. So I walk them through all of these aspects of healing. And then I throw on the oils, and then I throw on all of the things that help support that journey, because this is a combination of doing heart work and mind work. You've got to go through the both of them, and what better way to do that than when your body's functioning at a level, a cellular level that allows it to be optimized, and then doing the things with the oils that you need to, putting it on around your belly button, around your liver. Like, it sounds crazy, but giving the oils the ability to release the traumatic memories that are stored in the DNA of our body's organs. That was a huge transformation for me. So I share all of those facets within the Trauma to Freedom Symposium to equip people with their journey to heal and overcome their past. And that's a phenomenal program. I've had over 1,200 people go through that program so far.
That's so exciting. Now tell me though, if people want to find you, what is your website?
Perfect. It's just my name. So it's jasonsapp.com. And I actually just recently, like yesterday, relaunched my website. So I've got some new features to it. I actually have a membership site available now that will allow you to connect and have a social interaction with other members of the site, with me, with the information I'm posting. And so I'm doing more frequent, constant videos on both my Facebook page, but I'll be doing just the same within that website. In fact, there's going to be content there that you're not going to get on any other site. So I've got an amazing website there. I've got some free tools on there. My books are on there. I've got 2 books that I've published. So it's an amazing tool and resource for not just healing trauma and overcoming trauma, but then moving forward with your life. And I think that's the biggest thing that I try to advocate now. It's one thing to heal from trauma, but it's a whole nother thing to take that new identity you've just shaped and do something with your life. And that's the purpose that I try to help drive into home and help people connect to their God-given purposes and their identity. Because that's where you can optimize your life. That's where you find fulfillment and joy, and not just temporary happiness here and there and things like that. So
not just going through the motions of life.
Right. True fulfillment comes from living with your purpose. And when you define what that purpose is and realize what that is, it changes your life.
Yes. So I want to congratulate you, because you truly took this on your own and got your health back and found freedom and found your purpose and calling, restored your marriage. That's a lot. So congratulations. And I'm so thankful that you're doing what you're doing, that you're pouring back into people. That's a great service to people. So thank you for doing that.
No, thank you. And I think, as I look back at it, I tell folks that I coach, you don't have to go out and be me. Like, you need to go do you, whatever that looks like. But I believe that all of us have a similar mission as far as helping others, right? Whatever that might look like. So for me, I see the need to dive in and help others. And to me, I consider it an honor and a privilege to be able to do so. But I also understand the responsibility that the freedom that I now have comes with it, of responsibility to do something about it. And that to me means spreading that freedom to others. And if that means I got to reach down into the darkness of where somebody's at in their trauma and help pull them out of that, then I'm doing what God's called me to do. And I'm grateful for the life that God has given me to be able to do this work. And it wouldn't have been without him in doing so. But at the same time, I still have to take that ownership and that responsibility in helping others. And I think if we can all realize that at some level of all of us have that purpose of helping others in some capacity, if we could all do that, I think we can understand not only the gospel of Jesus better, but we can understand our purpose and find joy, peace, and happiness.
Yes. Okay, so as we get ready to close, I have one final question. I want to know if you have the chance now to speak to people who may have been in the same or similar shoes. They may have PTSD, they may have anxiety, depression, they may be suicidal. What would you say to them?
For one, I would reiterate how much I understand where they're at. Although I may not be in their specific shoes, I understand the pain that comes with living a life full of trauma. And I understand that pain can seem overwhelming and almost remove hope and almost remove what a better life might look like. But I would advocate and say, don't stay stuck there. There is a better life available. There is a path that you can choose that'll allow you to heal from the past and take ownership of a new life and be able to move forward in your life. I've lived it, I understand it, and I've experienced it, and I advocate for that. And so I would encourage anybody that feels stuck in the position they're in to realize that there is still hope and that there is still a way to get from where you are to a life filled with fulfillment, joy, peace, and happiness. And to take that as a challenge to go out and get it. It's one thing to say, okay, you've got this plan or this program or this thing you can do, but at the same time, you've got to do it. You've got to take action on looking out for what that path might look like and diving into doing the things that you need to do in order to have that better life. It's not going to come at you by itself. You're not going to all of a sudden just snap out and be like, oh, life is beautiful now. There is a journey to heal, but it's important for you to know that healing is available, that restoration is available, and a better life is available. Once you connect to that truth, do something about it and go seek it, and don't stop till you get to it. Bottom line.
And sometimes it truly is almost more than the person can do. So I just want to get started. So I just want to encourage people to reach out. Like, there is no shame in getting help along the way. God created us for a community, and so reach out. If you're struggling with some of these same issues, reach out to Jason, go to his website. You can contact me and I'll connect you. But staying stuck after you've heard this would be a choice.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Choose something better. God has better for you. So I encourage you to choose that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jason, thank you so much.
Yeah, go ahead.
What were you saying? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're good. I was just saying that it's great to see the best path for people to heal from trauma is other people. And that's an important thing, like you said just now. Like, reach out to somebody. If you know somebody that's struggling, reach out to them. Like, don't be shy in reaching out to them. Even if all you can do is just be a listening ear, or if all you can do is just give them a drop of oil, or if all that you can do is just be there for them, do that. That's what's needed, because it is a community. It takes a community, and we are relational in nature. So without that, people are left in isolation, and that's not a safe place to be. I guarantee you that.
No. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I'm so excited to see. I'm going to dive in and check out all your stuff on your website. I can't wait. But I appreciate you sharing your story with us so much. So thank you very much for being here.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, listeners, I will see you next week with another great God story.